Hello and welcome to everybody here. Uh, this is the Expert Dialogue Series. EBTC Primus Partners are very happy to bring uh, renowned experts from infrastructure space. And today we are talking of the Ambitious Highway program of India, something that has been the backbone of Indian development story for nearly 2 decades now. One of the largest programs, both in terms of investment size, PPPs, and really an ambition that seemed aspirational, but with some very good actions translated well into the ground. So let me welcome our experts here. Vaibhav has held very senior leadership positions in the highway sector, including as advisor to the minister for many years. In fact, a wonderful book that he has launched by the minister himself recently, building bridges and his lessons on the Indian highway sector that he has put in there. So welcome, Vaibhav. Wonderful to have you here today.
Same here.
And Atul Kulkarni, well-known logistics expert, board member of the very well-reputed leading institution on logistics, NITI. And welcome, Atul, on board. And we all look forward to learning from you today. And my colleague Paul from EBTC, who's been leading the charge in a number of these infrastructure sectors and helping Indian and European businesses come together in driving the development story in the South Asian subcontinent. So welcome to all of you. And my privilege to host you today. Thank you so much. I would also request the audience that as we go along, if there are any thoughts that come to your mind, please do add the questions in the comments section, and we will wait for the experts to pick up the ones they will address as something that's critical, and therefore we look forward to audience participation. So let me start the hostilities, as they say, and wherever if I can request your sort of thoughts on this. Clearly, it's an ambitious program. It's predicated along the lines of access. There should be universal access. It should aid the development story. There should be sustainability that should be built into the program as it goes forward, both in terms of asset life as well as in terms of the climate change perspectives. We are one of the prime targets of the Road Safety Action Plan. So a number of very good, what I should say, again, aspirational is the word that comes in for our country to have these targets going forward. So in your experience over the last 2 decades, how well do you think, or what are the challenges and how they've been addressed? And it would be wonderful to look into your mind around those thoughts of access, availability, sustainability.
India, as we all know, is one of the. Sorry.
Wherever we can see you, but we can't hear you. Can you just say that again, please?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yeah.
Okay. So as
there's
we all
still a
know,
problem.
India,
I think we will wait for the team to set that right. Just give us 2 minutes, and let me address Atul for a moment as Vaibhav comes back. Atul, one question that's always sort of bothered me. Sometimes in our country, we end up confusing intermodalism with multimodalism. People just think that because you can have, your consignment move from one mode to another, and that simply becomes multimodal. How do you see us addressing the true challenges of multimodalism in the Indian context?
I think you can go ahead,
Yes,
Vaibhav,
audible
because
now?
you're audible to us. Only Tavinder who
hear me?
cannot hear us at the moment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Atul. Yeah.
I am not able to hear any of the experts. Something wrong with my side? Or...
Yeah, so you want to go ahead, or you want to go back to Vaibhav?
I think let Davinder join again. I think he had a connection problem with his loudspeaker.
So, Paul, take over. So we will.
I think he's back now. Davinder, can you hear us now?
Sir, can you hear us?
I think, Vaibhav, you go ahead and answer the question. We'll try and manage the technicalities in the background now.
Right. So, thank you, Paul. As we started our discussion, India's highway sector or road sector is one of the largest infrastructure sector, one of the largest networks in the world. In 2014, I remember when this government took over and the highway development program was ambitious programs were announced. India was a bit struggling with its entire highway sector per se. There were more than 200 projects which were either stuck, delayed, or derailed, and more than 3 lakh crore of Indian investment was stuck because of those projects. Over 7 years, we have seen a very phenomenal growth in the highway sector. India roughly has around 52 lakh kilometers of road network, out of which around 1 lakh kilometer was the highway network. But this lakh kilometer of highway network was carrying more than 60 to 70% of the load of logistic movement in India. So the amount of load it was handling was much higher in proportion to the length of the highway network. So a sustained effort has been put in to ensure that the national highway network becomes doubles its length. And today in 2022, we have 150,000 kilometers of highway network. Today, India is building almost 38 kilometers of national highway per day. And this is not per lane per kilometer. It's ranging from 6 lane, 4 lane to 2 kilometers. India is building around 22 new greenfield express highways, which will address to the one of the world's longest express highway between Delhi and Mumbai, which is a national capital and economic capital of India, is being built more than 1,300 kilometers of length. So I think India's highway sector has seen a phenomenal growth, and probably it is driving the India's infrastructure network. And the whole vision behind this whole ambitious plan was primarily to, one, ensure that India logistically become competitive. There is access, there is a connectivity. For example, the priorities which were identified by the government in its plan, which government announced in Bharatmala, were very clear, that we want to ensure that our economic corridors are congestion free. We want to ensure that our ports are well connected. We want to ensure that our every backward district, as they call it, aspirational district, is connected. Every district headquarter is connected with the national highway. Every tourist place, every religious place, every backward place, every border area is connected. So very clear-cut definition of what India wants to ensure through highway connectivity, and a very ambitious plan called Bharatmala, which was connecting the entire network. If probably some of you might remember, in 99, India developed the first ever ambitious national highway development program, which was called as Golden Quadrilateral and North, South, East, West corridors. That was the first legitimate national highway development program India has developed. And that brought in a quite sea change into the highway infrastructure network in India. Probably this is the second biggest ambitious program by the name Bharatmala, which India came up with. And it's roughly around 34,000 kilometer of highway length, which is supposed to be redeveloped, relaid, new highways being built. Some of them are greenfield. Around 2,000 kilometers, around 22 economic corridors have been identified. Around 12 major ports and around 120 minor ports are being connected. Efforts has been put in, as Devinder said in a question to Atul, to ensure that this whole highway network supports the multimodal movement of goods, including intermodal, connectivity. So those kind of very ambitious, I think it's more than 15 lakh crores of in Indian currency, more than 15 lakh crores of ambitious program. So the whole idea is to bring down logistic cost from around 18%, which was there in around 2014, to a global average of around 10% by 2024. That's a very bit ambitious plan, but I think the entire highway development program is focused towards that. That is one point. And another important aspect, probably in the vision, was to ensure that highway development kinds of bring in around at least 2% of growth into the GDP. I think that is the larger picture in the highway development program.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vaibhav. I was able to fortunately catch the last stanza, and sorry for that technical glitch that came in. And let me get back to Atul on another question that keeps on troubling a number of experts in our country. Clearly, the need is to move towards containerization. I mean, that's what we are saying. That's one way of reducing cost. And of course, there are multiple container sizes. We now have dwarf containers. I remember Indian Railways 3 decades ago used to have those 6 footers, which somehow went away, and so high value cargoes and all those things. But while we are a little ahead of the curve on standardization of the container or the carrying part, but still far away from standardization of on multimodal parks, on other such infrastructure facilities. I mean, a truck loads from one point, it goes to the unloading point and finds that the platform is of a lesser or more height, so that neither the forklift cannot approach, or some extra effort has to be added. So how do we have national standards around the multimodal infrastructure?
Yeah, Devendra, I think this is one of the most critical, I would say, challenge that we are facing. I mean, let's accept the fact that our logistics infrastructure was never focused. I mean, we had roads, we had railways, everything was there, but there was nothing called as logistics. So what we ended up is having godowns and warehouses, and a very, very primitive way of handling cargo. And then some of the cities then started getting choked and congested. I mean, classic example being Delhi or Mumbai, and then we moved to see the NCR region. Some of these markets were moved out, the godowns were moved out, or we talk about New Mumbai, Turbe, and APMCs and Bhiwandi, I think. And then we all you know kept on saying that okay, there's a new location which is coming up, and therefore we will have better facilities there. But unfortunately, we saw mushrooming of godowns and warehouses, and nothing as such on the standardization part, which you rightly mentioned, and that actually is the bone of contention. And I must admit that even today we have not solved that problem. Although we are seeing multimodal logistics park, we are seeing container freight stations, we are seeing world class infrastructures with more than 1 lakh square feet. I mean, multiple million square feet facilities coming up, but those are far and few as you compare the overall logistics requirement and the movement of cargo. The sheer amount of cargo that this country moves from one part of the country to the other part, north, south, east, west, or whatever it is, I think there is still a scope for not just new infrastructure to come up, but the point that you mentioned about standardization of the facilities, right from ramp to the floor to the height of the godowns. I mean, all of this is something which is missing, if I have to say. But that is primarily on account of absence of large facility operators in this country. See, you have to accept one thing about a country like India, where entrepreneurship is driven primarily by the local people, the communities. And I mean, for long, we haven't had large corporates entering into this domain. While they were doing production, they were into manufacturing, but their logistics, or the new word, or this the phrase that we use, supply chain, was never focused. Supply chain was probably left to the people to handle, I mean, the way best that they thought it can be. But from there, I think we have come to a stage where the supply chain professionals are now sitting on the boards, because the even the large corporates have realized that This is actually the pain point. Why Indian goods are not becoming competitive globally is the supply chain, not just the cost of manufacturing or things associated with that. So I think with that has definitely come in the standardization within the I would say ambit of a particular conglomerate or a big corporate house, but across the board standardization by all service providers, or I would say 60-70% of the service providers or operators in this logistics space is still missing. We still have to go a long way when it comes to that. Use of equipments, material handling equipments, etc., is slowly picking up, but one has to also accept the fact that this country has huge population and we still have to find ways to engage them gainfully. So there are still areas where the human energy or an individual is still made to work rather than just become an operator of a machine. So I think we are moving towards that in terms of standardization of the warehousing facility, standardizing of the trucking facility. I mean, come to that, even when Weber would probably agree to that. In the past, if we were talking about parking facility, then people would just say, okay, there is no problem. There is land adjacent to a roadside. That's a parking facility. But people won't realize that along with parking facility comes a proper food, proper restroom for the drivers and things like that. So I think we are slowly getting there in terms of creating the standards. And as everyone knows that the aspirational uh, population, I would say, so Vaibhav mentioned about the district, but I would say the aspirational young population of this country is actually now demanding such thing. I mean, they can't. I mean, they know that Amazons and the Flipkarts would deliver the goods next day. And why is this happening? Because there is some kind of a standardization in their logistics movement, in their cargo movement, in their material handling, and this is what I think people have realized. And slowly we are seeing emerging infrastructures, facilities which are common user facilities. This concept also of a common user facility, I would say, is something that is, I mean, recent, I would say, to India in terms of, putting cargo together by competitors, so to say. I mean, this is also a new concept, and I think, therefore, we will see this happening more and more, and we will see better infrastructure, which will bring down the, the challenges associated with the multimodal or intermodal operations.
I think, thank you, Atul, for raising that. I think that's a very insightful way of looking at it, because if we want standards, and then if we are able to push common use infrastructure, possibly various partners in the supply chain system will then come together on those common standards. Will everybody will see the advantage of that. And that's something that's very, very critical, even in bulk movements. Like I just completed a major exercise for the coal ministry, and that's what we have suggested this. Being the largest commodity moved, you must have common user facilities. That's great for the nation.
Because
Let me come back.
I mean, I would just add a small, because this is now becoming a challenge for even tier two cities. Let's not forget that. I mean, this is not only the problem limited to the metros anymore. Tier two cities and this Gati Shakti and so many other initiatives that we have, whether it is the industrial parks, etc., economic zones, they are definitely going to, I would say, add to the urbanization. And when you are talking about urbanization, that means you're getting into the cities or the towns which are already there. I mean, today we are talking about probably the logistical challenge that we have in Delhi or Mumbai or Bangalore, or for that matter, a place like Nagpur, although it has well connected road network going in all four directions. But a small town like Shillong also is today facing the challenge, and that challenge is a logistical challenge. And when I say logistical challenge, it's not just the cargo movement, even the people movement is becoming a challenge there. That is simply because there is so much of a movement of people that is happening because of the overall economic activity that is increasing. The movement of people, sheer movement of people. And that is where I think there is a need for standardization in the entire multimodal space.
Thanks for that, Atul. And as you rightly said, finally, standardization will lead to more efficiencies and finally translate to lower cost of logistics and lower costs across the cycle. And that was something that Vaibhav mentioned earlier, which brings me to this point, Vaibhav, and welcome your thoughts on this. If you look at the recent input cost inflation into the highway sector, especially in terms of the cement and steel prices that have literally gone through the roof over the last 2 years, developers' financial models are all haywire. And a number of us worry much that if this is the kind of input costs that are going on, then what are the kind of toll charges that are going to be asked for by the developers in the future to affect financial closure? And finally, it all adds up to the cost of doing business in the economy. But we want lower cost infrastructure and we want a more competitive output so that we can compete in global markets. So how do you see this, particularly from the point of view? I remember, I would remind you, the Honorable Minister had said around 5-6 months ago, we will ensure alternate use of materials, which brings on the cost, because if you guys in the steel and cement will not bring down your prices, and that inflation will continue. So welcome your thoughts on how do we actually lower the cost of building highways in the long run.
No, I completely agree. The rising input cost is a worry, and that will obviously impact the entire economics of the project. But I think equally, there has been a lot of input going into the overall highway development on that aspect in India. For example, the overall competitiveness in the highway sector has increased so much. I'll give you some statistics. For example, the entire process has been made so healthy. The cost of entire what do you call the leverage cost, which developers otherwise put in a lot of in terms of bidding and the delays in bidding and delays in execution. For example, now no project is awarded unless there is a 90% land available. No project is awarded unless there are clearances available. No project is awarded unless there are wildlife and other kind of approvals or railway approvals are in place. This has saved huge amount of time and cost for the developers. For example, last year more than 110 EPC contracts, engineering project contracts, were awarded, out of which around 102 were bidded much below to the bid cost by the developers. So one aspect, of course, is a competition and a cutthroat competition, but the other aspect, none of those projects have got delayed, or none of those projects are stuck or stalled, or are facing much of a financial problem, for the simple reason because they have been able to save the time. For example, the element of change in work culture has been brought in. There is a incentivization if you finish your work before time or well in time, and there is a decentralization or penalty if you delay your work by a day, every single day. So there are developers who have done more than 10-15 projects over a period of 2-3 years and earn more than 150 to 200 crore rupees of incentive only on achieving the project before time. So I think that makes a huge difference in the change in work culture. So that's aspect one. Another aspect to this, as you rightly said, there is a concept of bringing in a lot of sustainability by bringing in a lot of materials, change in materials, which will be kind of a reuse, recycle, so that we reduce the dependence on the new material. For example, plastic is being mixed in the bitumen. Rubber crumbs are being mixed in the bitumen. All the highways are using fly ash. I remember incidents in 2014 when we started using fly ash in highways. The power generation companies have come up with, and the Ministry of Power has come up with a proposal saying that we will pay you transport cost because you are helping us reduce our fly ash usage, storage. So we'll pay you a transport cost. Please take our fly ash and use in your roads. Today, most of the projects we are not getting fly ash because there is no fly ash available, and now power generating companies have come up with an auction to purchase a fly ash to be used in highways. So I think that's a big change it has come. It has addressed the issue of managing the fly ash. It has addressed the issue of reducing the pollution and things like that. And it has also reduced the dependency on the precious materials. Similarly, for example, entire construction waste is being put into the highway construction. There are being efforts made where the municipal waste can be processed and converted. For example, the efforts are being made to create a quarry from the plastic waste. And then Central Road Research Institute is continuously doing strength test on those quarries. So I think there is a lot of effort being put in. Or for example, soil stabilization materials are being used. Uh, Almost entire highway which is being relaid, it is compulsory now to remill and reuse the bitumen and the surfacing. So that saves a lot of input in terms of material cost. For example, the efforts are being made to reduce the uses of concrete. I like to share a technology being used from Malaysia, where instead of steel bars in the girders and the structures, steel fiber is being used. So it reduces the entire usage of concrete into the amount of concrete that is being used. So rationalization of usage is being planned. So I think all put together, it's a continuous process, and you will have to address the sustainability part of it, the reuse, recycle, reduce part of it, the nature friendly approach to it, and of course the cost part aspect to it. So I think it's in total. So that's one aspect of it. I'll also if you allow me a few more seconds, I'll also try to address the experiments that are being done on reducing the cost in terms of end user, toll user. For example, I'll again like to share some data. The sincere effort were made to convert a normal tolling to an electronic toll collection. The amount of saving that is bringing in. So, for example, our latest data suggests me that India is saving 46 crore hours per year on idling at the toll plazas every year. India is saving 35 crore liters of fuel every year just because we converted to electronic tolling. And that amounts to around 2,800 crores per year just because of the fuel saving. The total economic value on saving because of the toll collection being converted into electronic tolling is around 9,78,000 crore. That is the total economic value that is being impacted. I remember a session I was attending, I think a month back, with the transporters in India, and they gave me a very interesting statistics. How do we reduce logistics costs? Yes, because of the new highways, some toll will increase and things like that. But for example, the amount of travel per truck per day usage was around 300 kilometers 7-8 years back. Today it is more than 600 kilometers per day. A machine is being used for 600 kilometers. It has bring in value to them in terms of efficiency. Their per kilometer tire usage cost was around 26 paisa. It has reduced to 16 paisa. So, overall, probably toll might have increased by 10 rupees or 10% or 12%, but their overall cost has gone down, their efficiency has gone down. The amount of journey a driver is able to do in a day has increased from almost 300 kilometers to double to 600 kilometers. So, all put together, it's a total package. I think all put together, the efficiency has come in. There is no specific data, but the estimate suggests that the logistics cost has reduced from 16% to roughly around 14%. Around 2% reduction has happened. So I think that's a great positive sign. So in spite of input cost being increased, I think there is a continuous process and efforts need to be made both on input side, both on efficiency side, both on process side. So then that the whole total package will work for the logistic operators.
Thank you, Vaibhav. That was very rewarding. Paul, I'll ask you to jump in at this stage with clearly Vaibhav has pointed out there are a number of experiments that India has been trying, use of plastics, shredded tires, other ways. Fly ash is a major event that's happened. What lessons can come in from EU that allows partnerships between EU and India, both at the G2G level and even at the B2B level, for the highway sector in India? I mean, Europe has been leading the charge on sustainability and green and setting a lot of standards. So, I mean, look forward to your views on how we can, better the mix on both sides.
Yeah, thank you very much, Davinder. And it's fascinating to listen to both Vaibhav and Atul, and I agree with a lot of things, and I'm encouraged by a lot of the information that has come. Yeah, that you're saying, Atul, for instance, that more and more supply chain professionals are entering boards, because I think that's actually one of the challenges that's been, because you both mentioned, yes, there's a lot of investment in road. Yes, there's a lot of investment in port. Yes, there's a lot of investment maybe now in inland waterway, in different modes transport. But is there also really investment in the interface between the different modes, so the exchange of goods between the modes is efficient? And I think that's where one of the missing links might be, because cargo doesn't think transport mode. Cargo thinks supply chain. Cargo just wants to get from A to B in the most reliable, maybe the most cost efficient, maybe the most time efficient, maybe whatever. I have to choose full rail or full road or full inland waterway. So and whether it's even a strategic choice. Maybe I'm an automotive supplier in Delhi, and I supply Chennai with my cars. And at the moment, I'm only doing it by truck. The day there's a truck driver strike, I don't even have a strategic alternative, even if it's much more expensive. Well, there is an alternative now, but I think that's where a lot of focus could be. And I think, Davinder, that's also where maybe a lot of learnings and a lot of engagement can be done with Europe, because I think Europe is quite pioneering in multimodal transportation, really thinking cargo and thinking supply chains. And there's a lot of a variety of concepts there. I also agree with Vaibhav in terms of technology. I think Europe has quite a few ideas, concepts, solutions, technological advances that could be interesting for India. And I think you mentioned a lot of them already. Yeah, recycling. So when you want to do up a new road, want to create a new, I mean, there's actually technologies that you can use exactly the same material, add a bit of extra, whatever you call it, magic sauce, and you're actually using the same without using new materials. And maybe that can also address the issue of input costs and logistics. But I agree. The approach, the cooperation between Europe and India has to be multi-pronged. Yeah, it has to be at government level, and it has to be at business and technology level. And I think the two go hand in hand. And that's also the space that we try and operate in as EBTC, try and connect both parties. And obviously standardization, you spend a lot of time speaking about standardization, and I think that is also a key to make the interoperability of the different transport modes work efficiently. Yeah? And I'm also happy to see not only the PM Gati Shakti plan, but also the national logistics policy that's coming up, the warehousing policy. So government in India is focusing minutely on logistics in many different aspects, and I would say even at a micro level, all with a target to lower logistics cost. Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense, because with a lower logistics cost, you will have a higher economic activity. You will attract more foreign direct investment, because currently a lot of investment in manufacturing is hampered by a lot of annoyance in the logistics space, in the infrastructure space. And if we up the ante here in India on that, I think a lot more investment will come, and then you'll have a self-fulfilling cycle. And if those supply chain professionals on the boards that Atul is talking about, then that push will also come from the business itself, from the market itself, and the demand itself. And then the very reactive government at the moment will obviously react to that. So I'm looking forward to those policies actually being tabled and pushed through. And I think that's the way forward, Davinder.
Thank you, Paul. Atul, I see some very good questions coming in from the audience, and one question I thought you would like to address is that ambitious program, as Vaibhav has pointed out, and we've seen in the budget. But how are we ensuring that the future highways is EV compliant and EV capable? I mean, are we going to dig it up all over again and start those things, or what's the plan here? How do we make them EV compliant right from now onwards?
How do we make it? Sorry?
EV compliant. So they're compliant for electric vehicles of the future.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I think this is again, as I said, I mean, these are the things that the country will have to, accept those challenges, because it is not easy again. I mean, you will have so many challenges when it comes to EV compliance, especially when you're talking about a huge cargo movement, and also the activity that happens at the port itself. I mean, the amount of energy that we consume at all these ports, and the kind of green energy requirements that emerge out of it. by the fact that we have agreed to be, to follow the SDGs by 2030. I think there's a huge challenge that we have, and the ports will have to probably go a little bit ahead of the other, the infrastructure that is coming up for common user, for the public utility, because ports cannot wait till the public infrastructure comes up for it to become the EV compliant. So I think there is an effort that is going on. I remember while Vaibhav was working in the shipping ministry, we've launched that initiative to have the solar energy arrangement at Kandla port, where all the major ports have joined together, and they are generating enough energy at one place, because it is not possible for them to generate that green energy at every port location, because they are not conducive for that. But there is one port where it is possible, and so therefore all of them came together and invested in that project, where we are generating large solar energy, which is basically kind of contributing to what we are consuming otherwise across the country. So I think such kind of arrangements the ports will have to look at, the container freight stations or the warehousing facilities. Or I'm glad to see some of the logistics parks, having the alternate energy generation at their place itself, so they are not dependent on the infrastructure or the facility that is available for common use, or for the public at large. So I think such initiatives will have to be continued. Of course, in terms of movement of cargo from place A to place B to become EV compliant, I think that will happen only as part of the overall master plan that the Road Transport Ministry has put in place. Whether it is the ambitious project which Vaibhav mentioned about Delhi Mumbai, with one electric cable lane that will allow the goods trucks to move on the electric cover. I think these are the ambitious projects. I'm sure they will have to be put in place, because otherwise it's not going to happen. Because however smaller initiatives, maybe multiple or hundreds and thousands in numbers, but they will not give the scale. So obviously, in this country, we will have to create large facilities and large mega projects, at least for few very very important destinations. So whether it is EV compliant, or whether it is the green port concept that we are talking about, especially, I'm sure Europe will be able to help us on that. The exact unfolding of the green port concepts, and as how we can make entire port ecosystem more environment friendly, because you just talked about handling a bulk cargo. One area where there is a lot that needs to be done, although sorry, some of our ports are away from the city, but the challenges that we have in the cities which are now surrounded by surrounding the ports, like Chennai or Mumbai for that matter. uh, we had to shut down coal handling in Mumbai, simply because we cannot allow, and we cannot continue those things. So I think these are the areas where Europe can definitely share the experience, how they've managed some of these things. And obviously, EV compliance is something which I think the automobile sector is aggressively working along with the ministry. So I think slowly we will see that. But obviously, I'll once again repeat that fact that, probably we may not see the driverless trucks operating. In India at least, we would probably look at alternative modes of driving, but humans involvement will be there to an extent, because we have to also remember the fact that we have social obligation also in this country, and that cannot be wished away. So I think as far as the EV compliance is concerned, we will, as a port or the logistics sector, we are on board when it comes to the ministry initiatives, and that's how we will go about it.
Thank you, Atul, for this. Can I request the audience to kindly mute? There are some, I can say, some noise. Vaibhav, quickly, if I can come back to you, I think we have time for
Yeah.
one more question.
Yeah.
The issue has been raised about the financing of highways for the future. So, how do you think the new financial vehicles? Government has talked of InvITs. The NAPFID has been set up. So how do you see the financing scenario develop?
I think Devendra, as you mentioned, in last 7-8 years, the highway sector has seen highest amount of innovative financing models that probably India has seen in last 30-40 years in the infrastructure space. For example, InvIT Trust has come, and it has been very successful. For example, the TOT model that came, toll operator and toll model, where a lot of tacit funds started participating in India growth story. And probably this is the area where European funds and European companies will have huge amount of attraction, because the average returns have been so phenomenally high. So I think highway sector per se is a quite viable economic model, tolling, and then maintaining the roads. Of course, out of the total banquet of development, there will be few roads which will be a social obligation of the government, and few roads which will be economic sense to the government. But all put together, the continuous efforts by the government to ensure that the petrol diesel sale is diverted to the highway sector, not used somewhere else. Efforts to build national infrastructure pipeline, and you create national infrastructure fund. Banks have been advised to push on the infrastructure, because post COVID, again, you bring the economy back. The whole focus has been on ensuring that there is enough. For example, the budgetary provisions for highway sector have increased from 30,000 in 2014 to 2 lakh crore in 2022. So I think it's a phenomenal growth. So I don't see there is a big challenge on financing of the entire ambitious highway development programs. Yes, there has been issues raised by some people on raising a lot of debt on the highway authority, but I think in long term, almost every highway in India is viable in terms of its economic viability. So that I don't see as a big challenge. To add to another question which Atul largely addressed is on the EV compliance. I think the entire highway sector, for example, most of the greenfield highways that are being built, every 50 kilometer there is a wayside amenity being developed where all charging, fueling, CNG, LNG infrastructure is being built, which will be very effective in terms of. Similarly, I think I personally remember going to Sweden and visiting Volvo and Scania and Electron facilities, where a lot of new efforts are being developed in terms of how do we use EV for the commercial goods movement. And I think has been a very successful experiment. Of course, the entire sector is still in the development phase, both in Europe and Western countries. But I think India has expressed is a very clear indication that we'll be more than happy to partner with these developments. For example, I remember Siemens and Volvo proposing to do a kind of a pilot in converting existing highways to an electric highway. So I think those experiments are definitely needed. And as the technology and the battery technology evolves, probably those solutions once are available, I don't see any reason why these Indian highways cannot be non-compliant to these developments. But I don't see charging infrastructure right now as a major deterrent in terms of expanding the EV network in India. For example, in two-wheeler segment, India probably is growing fastest in terms of EV compliances globally. So I don't see, it's a more like a chicken egg situation. So I firmly believe that if technology improves and the quality and range and pricing, these are the factors which will drive EVs in a long term.
Thank you, Vaibhav, again for the insight. Following up on Atul's, I think we've had a very engaging discussion. We're just about running out of time. I think we touched everything from sustainability to finance to new technologies, to the whole issue around how this has to be development appropriate and how much we can automate and how much employment we need, and the new vehicles that we are putting in, and the fabulous aspiration for the highway sector. So thank you to our experts, Vaibhav and Atul. This has been a great session. Paul, can I request you to come in and formally thank our experts for sharing their thoughts and insights with us?
Yeah, there is one if I am permitted to make one observation, and that is specifically I would like to make before Paul comes in, because I think it is relevant. Is the size of the sheer size of Indian economy and the physical landmass, and the kind of development that has happened over the years, in different parts of the country. We will have to probably look at different models. I mean, we will have to take the concepts from the success in the Europe, but we will have to probably develop a different approach when we are applying them in India. And I think that is where EBTC, organized alliance EBTC can play a role, because you understand the Indian and also, and at the same, you have been part of the story there in Europe. I think just case in point here is that no industry in India is up in a particular geography. Indian growth story has been across the geography. I mean, if you talk about pharma, then you have pharma in Gujarat, you have pharma in Andhra Pradesh, and you have now pharma coming up in even in hill states like Himachal Pradesh. So when we are talking about any solutions or any new ideas coming up for the sector or for a particular domain, I think we will have to look at even these kind of diversities that India throws at. Just observation for the experts and those interested in looking at opportunities in India, they will have to remember that.
Thank you, Atul. And I think you hit the nail on the head with saying, I think the key word is collaboration, right? I think India may need inspiration, ideas, technology, good practices, whatever from Europe. But believe you me, Europe needs India as much as the other way around, and only together. I mean, for Europeans, India is so vast. The scale is beyond mind-boggling for Europeans. So there's no way to do this without collaborating with India. And like I said before, at all levels, to make that happen, at the technology collaboration level, at business collaboration level. And I'm the biggest promoter of India when I speak in Europe. And I always tell Europeans, don't only look at Europe as India as a market, but look at India as a collaborator. Come to India, work with India and Indians, develop something for India, and maybe you have created something, co-created something for a global world as well. So I think collaboration has to be the core of everything that we do to actually tap the opportunities that are out, and also deal with the risk and the challenges that are there. So, but thank you very much, Vaibhav. Thank you very much, Atul, for joining us, and Davinder. Also, thank you to you, Primus Partners, for moderating this session so masterly. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the next session.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you
so much, Vaibhav, Atul. Bye bye.
Pleasure interacting with you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.